How many of you are familiar with the golden rule? Treat people the way you want to be treated. Look at all these hands. I love it. How many of you remember when someone was kind to you? Put your hand up. 6 people have their hands up, friends. 6. That's where it all starts. That's the power of kindness. We are the ripple. It all starts with us. Yes, I believe that life is happening for us, not to us, and that each experience, each opportunity, each connection is teaching us something, should we choose to see it that way. And so I really want to say that I am so grateful for what you do every single day. See, strong people choose kindness because lifting others up takes courage and heart. I will tell you that if it was in those therapy sessions, it was in that employee assistance helpline that I found the science of kindness, where I found the power of kindness for myself and for other people. It is not a personality trait. Kindness is a choice you make every single day. Choosing to be kind, especially when it's tough, shows strength and character and purpose. It's oftentimes the people who show us the most unkind ways who need kindness the most. And I know it's tough, sometimes really tough, to dig down deep to keep demonstrating kindness when we've been treated poorly. Be kind to your mind. I say this all the time, especially as we're going as an educator throughout the school year. I challenge you this school year. Be kind to your mind. If you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself. And I'll say it again. You are greater than great. You see, kids and individuals may not remember everything that you said to them, my friends, but they will remember you for your kindness. So may you navigate this school year where every student, every colleague, every individual remembers you for your kindness. If you can't find the light, be the light. And sometimes the light you're looking for is the one that you carry on the inside.
Hey everyone, it's Shep. So glad you're here. I am here with Dr. Chris Culver. I'm super excited to have Chris on. So I had Chris on in a previous podcast. Please, you'll be able to see the link below. It'll be in the description. I really think you should check it out. One of the reasons I asked Chris to come on is, first of all, not only is he a great guy, the stuff that he's going to be sharing is really different in all the stuff that's going on in the world right now. And honestly, as a as a relatively positive guy, I wanted to get somebody on who makes me look negative. Chris is incredibly positive. But more importantly, Chris is doing something called the Kindness Tour. And I'm going to ask him to talk about it. He and I are going to go back and forth. Before I forget, if you get a chance and you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel. That's how the channel grows. Give it a like. It costs you nothing. It's free. You click a button, subscribe, like, share. It's free. You don't even have to do anything. Just click a button. I'd really appreciate that. Chris would really appreciate it. And again, we appreciate you checking it out. That's really important. So with that out of the way, Chris, how you doing, my man?
I am great. I'm so thankful to be back. Thanks for asking me. I had a blast on the first podcast, almost a year ago. And so it's cool to come back full circle to be sitting in the seat again, having this conversation with you a year later.
I agree. So tell everybody, first I'm going to ask you, how'd you get to the contour, man?
So I think I shared on the first podcast, but I'll give a little bit of background. I had worked in education for several years. I was a high school English teacher, as a middle school administrator, and then most recently I served as an executive team member of a superintendent's cabinet. And during that time, I navigated some really lows and some really highs. And one of the lowest lows was when I worked as a middle school administrator in 2019, to the point that I had to call the employee assistance helpline. I had to seek the free therapy sessions. I had to do all the things that so many people have to do. And for so long, I was ashamed and embarrassed that I reached that point. But when I started telling my story, so many folks came out of the woodwork to relate and to understand what I was going through. In 2023, let me back up. I share that because I earned my doctorate, all rooted, understanding culture, climate, motivation. And a lot of that, what I didn't realize then, was rooted in the science of kindness. And in 2023, I found myself in the same situation I was in 2019, but this time I chose differently. I chose to walk away. I chose to step back and reassess what was for me, rooted in faith that everything's going to work out. And what happened was doors began to open. And what I started was a back to school tour, providing professional development around Gen Z, Gen Alpha, these students. But what transpired in transition was nonprofits, businesses, and organizations were reaching out around the same thing.
And I shifted the whole concept to move away from a back to school tour to a kindness tour,
Mhm.
and started to understand the profound impact on kindness and what it can do for not only our students, but for our workforce, for all of these spaces. And so a year ago, we started the kindness tour, and it has taken off. And I've been nationwide. I've done international webinars. I've done
Wow.
all kinds of work to help spread the message of kindness. And it's not one more thing. It literally is the thing that we are all missing. And if we can choose anything, choose to be kind, choose to be the light.
I love it. So my question is though is, and I'm hearing that, and I think it's fabulous. But how do you like? I see first of all, everybody. You'll see. I'll put Chris's links in and stuff like that. You got to see the stuff he's doing. Like, how did you? How'd you get to that though? Like you didn't all of a sudden just wake up and say, "Oh, we're gonna do a kindness tour." Like, how'd you get there?
I think it's really interesting because a couple of things come to mind when you ask me that question. So I appreciate it. First one is I was picked on and bullied as a kid in middle school and high school to the point that I almost took my own life. Teachers literally changed and saved my life. I grew up in a verbally and physically, mentally abusive home. My parents did the absolute best they could, but my stepdad had an addiction to alcohol, and I think we saw some behaviors that were aligned with that addiction. And so, if it weren't for teachers and the hope and the faith and the positivity they provided, I don't know that I'd be here today. And I share that because I never want somebody to experience the things that I've experienced. I never want someone to navigate those hardships. And as I shared, I earned my doctorate research in culture, climate, and motivation because we lost 80 teachers in one school year. I'm sorry,
Wha-
50 teachers out of 80 teachers in one school year. And the principal said we have a teacher problem, but we know to be true. It's a leadership problem.
Right,
And
right.
so I share all of this that a high school classmate, when I thought I was in my darkest part, I just told her I was considering taking my life. A high school classmate reached out not too long ago and she shared, "You were always so positive in high school," which is wild. That's not the perception I remember of myself. I
Mhm.
think I'm barely hanging on in survival mode. And then just the other day, it's weird. We think about things that come back to us or these thoughts from previous in our life that just reoccur sometimes. And in eighth grade, I was applied to go on an exchange trip, but I was not afforded the opportunity. Literally every friend in my group went on the trip except me, and I never understood why. And the other day, out of nowhere, the middle school secretary that I went to school with, she was the secretary of the school. She wrote me and she said, "I don't know if you remember when you didn't get to go on that exchange trip." And I was like, what is she about to tell me? Like I had chills all over my body. And she said, "I know how disappointed you were, but I don't think you heard what I had to share with you when you were 13. She said, "For some of those students, this was going to be the highlight of their life." She said, "For you, you're going to do something bigger than this." And I was so moved by it. I still am even telling you this. I can feel the tears coming up in my eyes. And I share that because I think I've always been preparing for this kindness tour. I think I've always been navigating really hard situations and really toxic spaces and some things that people I would never want anyone to experience. And so I'm on a mission to try to make the world a kinder place, one small act at a time. And it's not the big grandioso things, it's the small things. And trying to teach people that it's an intentional shift, even for myself, every single day to be kind.
Mm, I love that, and that's so true because I think very similarly. I think that everything is about choices. Everything, how we talk to people, how we act, how we respond, they're all choices. And of course, there's always going to, I always say this, we're not about being perfect. We're human beings.
Yeah.
We're going to make mistakes. We're going to get upset. Sometimes we're going to say and do things that we probably shouldn't do because we're humans. We're not perfect. But I believe that what you're doing, trying to spread kindness. And I guess my question would be is how are you like give me an example of something like okay, yeah, I'm doing this kindness tour and I'm spreading kindness and what briefly, what does that even look like though?
Yeah. So I think one of the pieces we have to remember is that kindness is not a personality trait. It's a choice, as you just shared, that you make every single day. And what I start to try to make people understand is that as in our brain, we are chemically wired to be kind, to be empathetic. But it's over time that shame and self negative talk, all of that impacts how we show up and make us choose other things, much that you're talking about with choice. So a lot of the workshop that I do, if it's a full day experience, is walking through individuals how technology has changed our
Oh,
world
oh yeah.
how it's impacted how we show up, how we think about ourselves, and then looking through the lens of empathy, right? Asking questions, seeking to understand, assuming positive intent, and having that immersive experience while vulnerably telling my own story, to not make it be like, you have to do this, you have to do this. It's all reflection based, right? Because until we choose to be kind to ourselves, and I always say be kind to our minds. If you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself.
Mhm.
Until we choose that, we really can't show up as the best version of ourselves to be kind to other people. And there's a fine line between being nice and being kind. Nice is just nodding or being people pleasing, right? Just saying the things that people want to hear and affirming the consensus. But being kind means choosing things that are best for yourself. And sometimes that's that people think that's selfish, but it's really not. It's boundaries. It's saying no, right? So it's helping people understand the true depth of kindness. There's a book out there from the guy who created Character Strong, Houston. Houston's the first name. Can't think of the last name right now. But it talks about deep kindness. And so often we considered kindness as fluff, of sunshine, lollipops, rainbows, butterflies, all that. But when we talk about deep kindness, listening to people, saying good morning, greeting people, these small acts, they are trivial to some folks. They really transform opportunities and connections. And I'll share that the other morning, I think you may have seen this on Facebook, I was walking around the lake and I was passing people and people weren't saying hi. And I was like, okay, so if I don't initiate the conversation, I don't think people are saying hello to me. But in my mind, I'm running the research that I know if I say good morning, it's going to spark that ripple. And 75% of more people are going to be more kind to other folks. So I was like, I'm going to try it. So I started saying good morning to people and they would respond back and they would smile and they'd have all this connection. And there was a moment where fear came over me because I couldn't remember if I left the front door unlocked or not. And I was like, crap, how am I going to get back in the house? But in that moment, I realized I passed 5 people and I didn't connect with them and they didn't go out of their way to connect with me. And so even though it took me initiating it, I was grateful because I was able to connect with folks and it made the walk that much better. But I think about how many times we allow worry, doubt, and fear to overcome us. But I also wonder how many of us just keep passing along in our day-to-day lives without connecting with people, knowing that as humans, we're wired for connection. We're wired to belong, to be seen, heard, valued, and respected. And so it's helping educators, helping businesses, helping nonprofits, helping everyone understand this is the kindness we're talking about. Not putting up words on your wall and throwing balloons around and doing a pizza party with Gene Days. Right? Those are all fabulous and amazing things. But what I'm talking about is working as a team, collaborating together, leading with empathy, having positive self-talk, finding gratitude, affirming each other, being mindful in what we're doing. And what does that look like? And giving people strategies. We can talk about the science and the research all day long, but until we give folks things that they can apply into their life, they're never going to be able to try it, right? They don't know what to do. And so when we give small, tangible things, which I try to do in everything that I do, even with resources for free on social media, on my website, is so that people can practice. Because we know over time when people practice, we're going to see the long-term outcomes that we're looking for. And hopefully that's a more kind world. That's the goal here.
I love it. It's funny. You said something. I think you said something about, was it assuming kind intentions, or is that what you said?
Assuming positive intent.
Right. And I would say that I don't believe many people think that way. Well, actually, let me change that. I don't know what people think, but I can tell you that from the experience that I see, it is very easy to be in your own little lane and stay in your lane and only connect with people in your lane that confirm your own values and belief systems.
Yeah.
It is very hard to come out of your lane to meet people that you might have different values than you, might have different thoughts than you, because then you become vulnerable. Yeah. And that is very difficult. And I see that because of all the stuff that I post, which I try to be very, down the middle. Like, I try not to sway. I try to be authentic. And while I do believe that positive intent exists, I think what happens is we are also wired for, if you think about social media, and I always say this, nobody cares about the cat being saved from a tree, right? Nobody cares. Or if they do care, it's like that. Right. But if something toxic happens, whatever it is, that gets all the news, and that is partly because of our brains, the way they're wired. Just our ancestors' survival mode. Like survival mode is not about being, Mr. or Miss Positive. It's about survival. And I think a lot of times people, for whatever reason, I don't know what it would be, just get kind of caught up in it, of just that mouse wheel of negativity. And it can be hard. It can be hard to kind of break it. And I think what you're doing is, well, I know what you're doing because I know you and I see the stuff that you're doing. You're going out of your way to try to get people thinking, which is really what it is. It's like, as a wellness coach, somebody who does a lot of wellness, and a teacher and an educator, I always think about, can I get people thinking? It's not necessarily about them acting right away. It's getting them thinking. Like, can I help you think about how you're talking, how you're listening, how you're reacting? And then once you do that, then the next part is the acting part. And that's the change piece. Like, if you think that, let me kind of think of an example. I see this with students. I can give an example of a student. So a student, might say, if I just you example, I say, Chris, how'd you do today in class? He's like, well, I thought I did okay. It was okay. And I said, okay, well, why just okay? So the first thing I'm doing by asking is getting you thinking, why okay? Why not great? Or why not better? And I think we have to ask questions. We have to ask questions. If we don't, and I think you touched on it, and I admit that I'm guilty of this. I've been guilty of the surface level positive stuff, which I think is fine, but the deeper stuff, it's like the why. So you're having a tough day. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah,
Right.
but you're still having a tough day. The next question is, hey, what's wrong? Why are you feeling this way? What can I do to help?
Right. How can I show up for you?
Right. And again, I think that's tough because we all have stuff in our own lives, you know. Um,
You touch on a
okay,
big point.
I'm going to transition a little bit into kind of this idea of mindset. So, would you say that? Would you say you're a positive person?
Yeah, I would say that I look on the rosy side of things most of life.
Okay. And how do you get like that?
Well, it's been through intentional practice, and I will tell you, it has not been easy. It is a challenge, and every day is an area of opportunity. Even in this work, right? Even in this work, and if I may, I'll share a quick story. I was supposed to
Please.
fly to South Carolina in July to be a keynote speaker, and the day of my flight in the morning, I got an email saying that I was being rerouted through Virginia because my flight through Charlotte had been canceled. I was like, okay. And then when I looked at my flight, I was not going to make my connection because now my flight had been delayed out of Oklahoma City. So, long story short, by the time I get on the flight to go to Oklahoma City to DC in midair, they've now delayed my flight longer. I'm going to miss my connection flight. So, the flight attendant says, hey, when you get off the plane, just let them know they're going to reroute you. I said, okay, cool. So while we're in the air, he comes up and he goes, hey, we're delayed because of a thunderstorm. I think you're going to be all right. But as soon as he says that, the captain comes over to the intercom and says, we're being diverted to Raleigh, Durham. We're not landing in DC because of the storm. And so I thought, I'm trying to be positive, right? My dad lives in Fayetteville. It's 2 hours away. I was like, yes, I'm going to go see my dad. It's all going to work out. I'll drive to DC. I'll figure this out. Or to South Carolina, where it's all going to work out. Then the pilot comes back on and he says, you cannot get off the plane. If you do, you're going to have to repurchase your ticket and all that. Those things. We're flying back to DC. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is all happening for me. What am I learning? Like, I'm trying to figure it out. And so it was 2 a.m. I get off the plane in DC. There's clearly no flights going to South Carolina. I'm stuck. And long story short, I get back home to Oklahoma City, don't make the gig. I'm in Oklahoma City. My bags were in DC. They end up in South Carolina. So at the gate, when they're trying to tell me they're not going to give me a hotel or a food voucher and all these things. I look at the lady and I said, I am a kindness advocate. I am a kindness researcher, and I'm about to lose my on you. I got to walk away for a second and come back, right? I had to breathe and calm down because I could feel my emotions going there. And I think back vulnerably to your question that a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have done that. I would have been way up escalated in fight or flight mode because my emotional response is kerosene that, burn it down, like I am burning it to the, and I know that's not healthy, but I've had to work through that. So when you ask me, how did I get there? It's been a lot of work, of this is happening for me. What is this teaching me? What am I growing through this? How is this helping me? And sometimes it's been a lot of reflection internally. And so that's why I often say, if you can't find the light, be the light. And sometimes the light you're looking for is one that you carry on the inside. And it's true. When we practice mindfulness, as you're sharing, and we practice our internal voice and dialogue, transforms a lot in our lives.
Yeah, I love that. And that story, I mean, the story you're talking about it's funny. I had I had a similar thing at the airport a couple years ago, and I would say that I think it is very hard for people to react the way you did. Um, Not everybody, of course. And a matter of fact, I'm thinking about this past summer. I was I was buying a car out of state, and I was in Cleveland, Ohio, and my wife and I were leaving, and we had to fly into Charlotte. So it was a Friday, so we had the flight. We drove to Charlotte. We had the flight from. Oh no, I'm sorry. We were in Cleveland. We took the flight to Charlotte. We had about a 4-hour layover, and then we were supposed to fly home. Now, the next day, I had plans to meet family in New Jersey. So our flight was supposed to leave at 11 o'clock at night. We would get in at 1, and then the next morning I would be driving to New Jersey.
Okay.
So we get to the airport, and Charlotte's a beautiful airport, so much to see. So we're eating dinner, and then we kind of go to the I get to guess the gate, and we get to the gate. It's like 9:30. Now remember, the flight's at like 11, so we don't see anybody. And I'm like, okay, maybe we're early. And my wife's like, I don't know, the people would be here. I'm like, just wait a couple minutes. So about 5 minutes later, somebody comes up, I guess another passenger, and they're like, the flight's canceled. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't get any email, no notification, nothing. And I'm going to do what you said, to make a long story short. My initial reaction was what? Anger, frustration. And then I kind of caught myself. I was like, oh, okay, let's see what we can do here. Let's see how we can make this work out. And ultimately, it did. It was a hassle, but I think one of the things that's really important, and I hope everybody gets this, is this is something that I often think about, and I think it'll resonate with you, Chris. What's the alternative?
Yeah.
I always think about that throughout so many parts of my life. What's the alternative? So, in your case, your flight gets delayed, it gets rerouted, right? What's your alternative? You can't do anything about it.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say that to everybody. When we talk about this, kindness is a choice. It's something you can do. We all can do it. There is no special power to do that. Certain things in our life are going to challenge our ability to be kind in the moment, to be positive in the moment. And it doesn't mean we need to be perfect, but in both instances that Chris and I are talking about, what's the alternative? Flip out, curse at somebody, yell at somebody. Well, guess what? The flight's still canceled. So now you've gotten angry, your adrenaline's through the roof, but guess what? You still don't have a flight. So you've accomplished nothing. Yeah, it might feel good in the moment to get some of that steam off, but you still don't have a flight. And I think that's something that's a mindset piece that can be, it's tough.
Well, and I think to your point, like as humans, we're wired for control, right? We want to control things. But the thing that we have to remember is I can't control you. You can't control me. The only thing that we can do is control our thoughts, our actions, our intentions. And so in that moment, and it's hard, as we both shared vulnerably that it was difficult, we recognized where we were getting frustrated and angry. We had the choice to choose a different response. And that's what we had to do. So, like you said, what is the alternative? But if you want to remain in control of the situation, choose a different thing for yourself. And it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to, in that moment of wanting to lose your marbles and all the things, because it's just hit that tipping point to say, I'm going to choose something different for myself, because you shared me cussing her out, me doing whatever is not going to get anything different. I don't have a flight. I'm still not going anywhere. So why not be kind and figure out what are my options here? Right? What are my resolution options? So I appreciate that.
Well, and again, and I think that's so. One of my questions though is, how do you, people that are struggling, right? People that are, I guess, dealing, have trouble controlling their emotions, or have trouble being kind, or whatever. What are steps that you can take that kind of will get them out of that thinking?
So, a couple things. First and foremost, sometimes we show ourselves unkindness the most, right? We're the hardest on ourselves, and in a world in which kindness is needed the most, people show us in the most unkind ways, right? So you want to give up and say they're not kind, I'm not going to be kind. Like that's the opposite of what we need to do. Keep being the light. And so in a moment of distress or that stressful situation, I always encourage folks to count to 6. Think of your 6 favorite flavors of ice cream. Think of your 6 favorite number. Think of 6 something, right? And once you get to that 6th thing, then respond. And what's crazy is in those 6 seconds, you're able to regulate your breath a little bit, that you respond differently. But if you make yourself pause, and that's, again, it's a choice. You've got to choose to pause, to breathe those 6 seconds, it can rewire your brain. The other piece is we have to remember we all add value to this world. We all bring value to the space. Everyone is needed, and everyone needs to be authentically them. And so the research highlights that when we write affirmations about ourselves, specifically 18, we're digging deep to remember the value that we bring. Number 1 through 11 are going to be super easy. They're going to fly out. But when you get to number 11 through 18, you're having to really dig deep. Those are the most vulnerable affirmations about yourself. And just like anything, like I think we were talking about before we jumped on the show, you can't just get up and think you're going to be this one mega basketball player tomorrow, right? People put in years and years of practice, years and years of sacrifice. It's the same. Our brain can be rewired. Our brain can begin to believe new thoughts. Whatever we tell it the most, it's what it's going to believe. So if we're telling ourselves every day that we add value to spaces, and we're practicing these things of pausing before we respond, those 2 intentional practices will allow us to be the ripple, small things, to smile at someone, to open the door, to offer encouragement, to give a compliment. And I know those seem superficial, but when we start doing those small things every single day, they catapult into larger things, because we have the opportunity to impact our friends' and change 1,000 lives a day by just being kind.
Chris, I love that, because I often say, as a wellness person, one of the things I always say to people is, and it's so critical, and it kind of, it's the umbrella of so many things related to wellness, which, by the way, I consider this conversation a wellness conversation.
Yeah.
If you can't do the small things, you're not going to be able to do the big things. You got to be able to compartmentalize. Like, I love this. People would say, as a teacher, I would say good morning to people all the time. If I walk in a room, good morning, Chris, good morning. Kids, when I see kids I coach, every one of them shakes my hand. Good morning, coach. They learn that. It's become just something we do. And that next thing, people will say, well, what's the big deal? Well, first of all, it's not a matter of what's the big deal. It's not a matter of that. I would say, well, if it's not a big deal, then do it. I mean,
I agree with you.
if it's something small, why don't you just do it? So if it's not such a big deal, say good morning, say hello, say how are you, wave at somebody, say thank you, since it's not a big deal. And then once you start doing that, it's funny. Right before we got on tonight, my wife and I were going for a walk, and we saw a woman walking her 3 dogs. And we have 2 dogs, and we just kind of I just kind of said, "Man, I wish our dogs would walk like that," because our dogs are really so she said, "Thank you so much." And then as we came around the block, we saw her again with her 3 dogs, and we started talking to her. And she was so thrilled to talk. When guess what? We could have not talked, but why not? Why not be for everybody? Because we're getting close to wrapping up. I'm going to have Chris kind of finish up with whatever he wants to talk about. Why not? Chris has said, be the light, right?
Right? Be the light. That's what I say. That's exactly.
Why not be the light? I'd like you to answer that. Why not? It's better to be the light than be the darkness.
It
It's not
is.
always easy, and we don't expect you to be perfect, but why not try it? Chris, do you want to do some closing thoughts, maybe ways to connect with you, or any other thoughts that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on your walking story really quickly. One morning we were going around the lake and we said good morning to someone, and she said good morning back, and we said have a great day. And she turned around and she said it all starts with a dream. And I think about had I not said good morning to her that day, I wouldn't have heard those words. And what's ironic is we needed those words as affirmation for something else we were thinking about. And I have chills right now. And it's exactly what you share. If we don't take that moment to connect with folks, no matter if it's in a grocery line, at an airport, no matter where it may be, just to say hello, to say, I like your earrings. How are you? Good morning. We miss a lot of opportunities to connect with folks who could open doors for us, who can create experiences for us, who that we don't know. Because if we realize we're all interconnected in some way, we're all connected in this world, and it takes all of us to make the world go round. And so I always encourage everyone, ask questions, seek to understand, assume
Yeah.
positive intent. There's one activity that I do every school year, and I do it in my workshops now. It's the famous I wish my teacher knew. But I flipped it and I share vulnerably. I say I wish Dr. Culver's students knew. And I tell my story. Then I ask students or workshop participants or business leaders, whomever, to tell their story back. And what we don't realize is we're all carrying an invisible backpack. We all have
Oh,
life.
yeah.
That's right. And so it's all like we've been talking about this entire conversation. It's an intentional choice to be the light. And when there's lots of darkness out there, we don't combat darkness with more darkness. We combat it with light. And even the smallest flicker can still guide someone. So I encourage you to be the light.
I love it. Chris, thank you, my man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great conversation, which I knew was going to happen. Chris and I are going to talk. I don't want to make a promise until we kind of finalize, but hopefully we can get something going where we're doing this on a regular basis. I think it'd be great for people. Chris is a true advocate for making our world a better place, and we can never have too much of that, ever.
That's right.
Can never have too much of people trying to make a difference in people's lives. So I'll talk to him. We'll see what we come up with, and we'll go from there. Again, Chris, thank you for being on. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Everybody, again, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please give this a share. Share it out with your friends. That's how it grows. Please give it a like. Ask a question. Put a comment in. If you put a comment in, I promise you that Chris or myself will comment back. One of us or both of us will comment back. Promise you right now. So again, thank you for all you do. We appreciate you. You're awesome.